Guys, none of these are going to work. Yeah. If this is going to be a hit, we need the right lead. It's so demeaning to pick a female lead this way. But people pay to see pretty people on screen. We need someone who's blatantly attractive, né? Someone like Drew Barrymore, but local and much, much younger. Okay. Someone like Lebu.
Lebu?
Yep. What? She's pretty but ordinary looking.
No, boss, I don't think I'd be the right
Work
one
with
for
me
that.
here, work with me. We need someone with Lebu's eyes. The secret is in the eyes. Everything is plain, but the eyes say, come hither. If we can find a girl with Lebu's boobs, that will be fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I want. Minus the pregnant belly, of course.
Two. You're gonna give it this.
Why?
It's fine.
Why? Because you're minority.
Why the discrimination?
No, because
Akumnandi.
Ngathini bani ngancamisa.
Cut! Paul, I don't really believe you want this girl. You've wanted her forever. Now this is your chance. Get close to her. We want chemistry. Ushu. Got that? First positions.
Guys.
Yeah, and then you realize your video's on. What's it?
No, ile gang ecabanga ukuthi
At least when they double back. I was like, the admin will be double back.
so you had that conversation. It's actually important.
gender-based violence against women. The first initiative we had was the Jizz Step Up initiative, where we did a lot of research to find out about gender sensitivity and understanding portrayal of women in the film industry. The big reason for us embarking on these initiatives is to minimize the talk shop and empower everybody who's in the film space to take action and be able to minimize, if not totally eradicate, gender-based violence, which is what led to the second initiative that we had with the Swift ladies, who were introducing to us the SCO, safety officers. And if you did miss that, you can catch it on YouTube. But the big idea is that if you are violated on set in any way, you now have a way to combat and actually hold the perpetrators accountable for the actions that they've done against you. The third one was actually Uga. We spoke about her documentary called Ellison, currently showing on Showmax, and she took us through the third process of how she maneuvered doing a documentary on such a sensitive and uncomfortable issue and portraying a woman as a hero despite the difficult circumstances that she endured. And today's probably going to be a wonderful roundup and an amazing learning experience for people to understand what the thought process is for the work that we now see on our TV screens when it comes to being sensitive about how women are portrayed, when it comes to showing concerning issues that people encounter that are gender-based related, and what we can do in our part to try and minimize it. As the NFVF, we want to not only improve abilities for people to speak out, but also be accountable as a support. There's a lot of talking that happens, yes, we know that. There's also a lot of actions. Some of the code of conducts of our partners are also working towards making sure this is improved. So we still re-emphasize the commitment to seeing our industry portrayed in a better way and minimizing on the GBV initiatives. So today we have a panel of experts who work in our industry who will be talking about the role they play and how they can challenge us to play our role in this space. And I'd like to give over the mic to Sarah from Switch, who will be facilitating the process. I urge you all to stay tuned for the whole process. Feel free to log on questions on the Facebook and YouTube page, and also understand the importance of the part you play to making sure that we win this war against GBV. We know we can't fix the whole world, but we definitely can look back 2-3 years from now to a very wonderful film industry that we participated in improving and making sure it works out better, not only for women, but for mankind as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nomuso from NFVF, for opening that up for us. And as she's rightfully said, today is the 10th of December. It's the last day of 16 days of activism. It's also International Human Rights Day, is why we close off 16 days of activism on the States. And obviously, when we think about the country that we live in and the reason that we're here today, it's because every single day women are dying in this country. We know that every day in South Africa, 57 people die out of violence in the country, and of those 57, 8 are women. So every single 8 hours, there's a woman who is murdered, and even less time frame, a woman is raped, a child is raped. So it's a big problem, and the severity of the problem is that femicide in South Africa is basically the level of a country that is at a low-intensity war. So that's how much torture, that's how much violence that we are facing in South Africa. So it is a big problem. And it begs the question, what can we do as creatives? I've got around me some accomplished content makers in South Africa. Let me start with introducing them and welcoming them to this panel. Thank you for watching. Please send us your comments to Love SA Film and on all the NFVF platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. On my left, my furthest left, is Flavia Mutsisi. She is a commissioning editor at Mnet, and before working there, she's also wears many hats. She's a businesswoman, she's a womanist, and has also made a lot of films, independent films that did a lot of festival runs in Africa, so she's very accomplished in making content. Flavia, thank you for being with us, welcome. Yes, please. While I find my notes, you can give a round of applause. And to my furthest right is Nezile Ntuta. He is, just remembering from my notes that you have worked in advertising as an assistant producer, as well as in the film industry on a lot of films such as Blood Water. Let me remember the others. There we go. Deep State, Blood Drive, Maze, Doctor Who, just to name a few. Thank you for being here. I know you're also a specialist in visual effects and production. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
To my left is Mangi, otherwise known as Kagiso Modupi. You know when they like, you're typecast as Mangi now. Eh? I'm sure you still get referred to that in person. You were on our screens as that character for like 14 years. I don't think Africa or South Africa is going to forget very soon that name. He's also an entrepreneur, producer, a musician. He's a hyphenate, very talented man sitting here next to me. Last year, he produced a film, which he starred in as well, called Finding Lerato. Losing Lerato. Eventually, yeah, close.
That's the sequel.
That's part 3. You told me part 3.
You know, sequel. There you go. There you go. And I know it did really well. Scooped 6 awards, 10 awards, excuse me, international awards. Halala. And of course, yeah, congratulations on that. And we're looking forward to any more of your work. I know that you're in production as well. To my second right over here is Stefina Zwane, who has been on our screens since she was a teenager. She was a presenter as a teen and already back then knew that she wanted to be a director. And once given the opportunity, hasn't looked back. Stefina is, of course, the producer and co-director for one of the biggest films in South African-made films on Netflix called Baby Mama. So that came out last year. Please watch it. Tune into Netflix and watch it. And I know she's very passionate about the films that she makes and also highlighting the scourge of child-hoarded families in South Africa. And she chose to do a film that affected kids in this genre and cast children in that genre and made a film called Love and Kwaito, which received official selection at the Joburg International Film Festival. So well done to that.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Bonga Percy, the Vilagazi. Accomplished producer, very well known for your work as a creative producer on The River and The Legacy, as well as, I don't think a lot of people know this, but you started out doing a music compilation and supervision on Rhythm City. So that's, you've come a long way since then. So this is a esteemed panel, and I think let's just kick into it. My name is Sarah Chitambo, and I'm a co-spokesperson for Sisters Working in Film and Television that Nombuso mentioned earlier. And our mandate in SWIFT is really to also see how do we equalize the pay, the treatment, and the way in which women are given opportunities in the film and television industry. And that is why we're here today, speaking about portrayal of women and how this feeds and spills into our off-screen lives as well. So let's start with, I mentioned earlier all these horrific things that happen every single day. What, if any, is your responsibility as content makers to mirror, reflect, or challenge what is happening in society around women? So let me start that. What do you see as a content producer your responsibility is, if any? I'll start with you, Flavia.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Can everybody hear me? So coming from a broadcasting space, although working for a private broadcaster, where our mandate is to entertain, which is very different from an SABC, which they would be mandated to, have social commentary and have, the different types of, elements and topics that they touch on. I think from Mzansi Magic, we are very much, and for Mnet as a whole, we are very much focused on making sure that we portray and represent society accurately, because we do understand that despite the fact that the platform is pay TV, there is a national identity that we are forming through the characters and the content that we put out there, right? And so part of what we're mandated to do, if I may use the word, is to ensure that there's correctives and to ensure that we don't romanticize issues such as GBV in our content and don't sort of like hide under the we are entertaining people sort of blanket. And that's something I am very proud of in terms of what we do and how we commission our content. And I think furthermore than that, especially from Mzansi Magic, part of our strategy and our drama strategy is to ensure that there's social resonance and social realism in the content that we put out there. And have the conversations and have the portrayal of women more specifically, as you would see that 90% of the scripted content that we put out there is female-led, to make sure that they're empowered, they're non-stereotypical, and they also don't enforce what it is that we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
I work with a dynamic team. There's 7 of us in our team that is always looking for, you know, right sort of representation within the team. And even in our briefs, Percy receives most of our briefs. When we put them out, we are always very much female-centric in the type of content that it is that we look out for. Whether that is enough, I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really want to point that out.
Yeah.
And whether the responsibility is with the broadcaster alone, I'm also not sure.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we put out briefs that are not solicited as per an SABC, where we say we're looking for a drama, it should be this long, and ideally on this type of day, and it should have hit all these marks, and yes, it should be female-led. But the autonomy is really on the creators who bring those stories to us to put in that representation, right?
So let me put it to a content producer like Percy or Stefina.
Exactly, yeah.
What do you think? Where does that lie? So the broadcaster has said, this is the brief. Where does your responsibility come in as a content producer in terms of where you see bringing in and infusing social issues into your...
Oh, that's what you're going to do.
I'll throw you under the bus.
So in our experience, right, as Sorel Media, we are 2 women, so our worldview and we experience the world as women. So whenever we think of story, we usually, 98% of our content is going to be from a female perspective. You mentioned one of our first feature-length film, Love and Kwaito. It was led by Ike Pisiako.
Emotionally.
It was led by, it was a story about child-headed families. And as a woman, that was very close to my heart. And trying to imagine, how does a 15-year-old raise a family? And it was something at the time that we weren't talking about a lot. And this is how, you know, my contribution was to share that story using film. When we did Baby Mamas, I was just tired of the narrative that we were used to of, ooh, baby mamas are horrible, ooh, they'll take you to court, ooh, you know, oh, they just want my money. And I was like, but the baby mamas I know are hardworking, you know, they're living their lives, they're hot, they're ambitious, and they're superb moms. And I wanted then to put that out into the world, to portray a different side to what a baby mama is, right? And to interrogate and to challenge the stereotypes that we are used to seeing in our media, in the media that we consume. So I don't know if that answers your question. It is always important as content producers to interrogate and then to share the story in your perspective.
Absolutely. And Percy, in your perspective as a man, tell me how you approach that and how you approach your responsibility in that.
For us as a production company, and I'm going to talk about the current production that we're doing, which is The River, the majority, well, all our writers are actually black. And different ages, different sexualities. We have more women than men. And the one thing that was always important to us was to tell stories that affect us and affect the people that we know. Although we might not be directly affected currently, because we work and we have jobs and whatever else, but there are people that we know who are still going through whatever social ills that we might have been exposed to. If I am living in a suburb, I know someone who has a daughter that might have been raped or whatever it is. So the first thing for us really is to tell stories that are reflective of what is happening. And as Flavia said, the tone then needs to be the right tone. Of course, when you tell television, especially when you're doing a telenovela or a show that's long form, it boils down to the numbers, to ratings, how many people are watching.
Yeah.
So although that has to be considered, we do have the responsibility of telling stories that affect people, of changing the narrative, of just getting people to think more deeper about issues that they might have not been aware of. So what helps us as men in terms of stories that affect women? I mean, how you are affected by rape is definitely not how I would be affected by rape. I would understand it from the point of view of a guy, but as a woman, you would have more insight on how exactly it would affect you emotionally, physically, psychologically, in every other way. So what has assisted us as a production is to have the correct representation in the story room. And I mentioned this in one of our other round table talks, that if you don't have the people with those voices and with those experiences, then you are telling your stories in a vacuum, because you have not experienced it. It's easy to assume that it's not important, or that other people who would be watching are not as affected by it.
Absolutely, and obviously if you don't have the experience, it won't resonate, it won't be authentic, it won't ring true to the audience, and I think audiences are smart enough to see through when things are created in a vacuum, like you said. Kagiso, just tell me about your own experience. I know you've also done a lot of work in your personal capacity with Brothers for Life around raising issues around gender-based violence in your community. Why is that important to you as an artist to be able to do that kind of work?
Look, before I answer that, just to add on what the guys are saying, I think we sometimes as producers, we tend to undermine the kind of power we have, and especially with the kind of medium that we're dealing with. It's a very powerful medium, and we are able to convince people when something is not right that it is right. And you see it even how, as directors, how we shoot it, we cheat a lot. You cheat the shots and all of that. So we need to be very careful with regards to what is it that we put out there, and also having to balance the business side of it as well. What Flavia is saying is that at the end of the day, we need to have revenue that's coming in. And our responsibility is for us to educate, But our biggest flaw would also be for us to educate by saying the right things. And not really interrogating. And I'm saying this now coming from a Brothers for Life perspective, where we've traveled the country, and we come out of it and we say, we really need to interrogate this GBV, because then we need to come out and talk as men. And we're saying men must talk, but then the content that we also put out there can also be damaging in such a way that men don't want to talk anymore. So what is it? It's very tough for us as producers to say we want to fix, but then instead of us fixing, we're actually causing more damage. So as producers, we need to be very careful of that, even in how we're telling our stories. So coming to, let's say, a Losing Lerato, which is the film that we're talking about, my film, where just looking at the character, I try and elevate women, where you've got a female cop, somebody who's in an industry where it's male dominated, but then you also give her a flaw as a character where she grew up in a very abusive home, and her father was killed by. Her mother was killed by her father during gender-based violence, but then you see her being the person who's protecting this man who's literally kidnapped the child. So we have to find that balance in how we do things, and show that just because this woman grew up in this way, it does not mean that this is how she views every man. She's after the truth.
Yeah.
Last thing, we need to make sure as producers that we bring back those conversations in taxis, in trains, because that's what really shapes our communities. And I can't remember the last time when you heard people talking about a show in taxis, And so we need that's how powerful our medium is that we need to put out content that will create conversations in taxis where we can kill social ills like gender-based violence. Yeah.
So it feeds both, right? So art imitates life, but also ways in which the content you put out there actually models people's behavior.
Yeah.
And I just want to speak, Nezile, to the danger of perpetuating stereotypes through the GBV storylines that we've seen a lot. I think we hardly see a departure from the victim, the slapping, but we never actually get to the root of why is this person this way? What is the root cause and what are the solutions? So can we speak a little bit about the danger of, even though we're seeing a lot of content, it's not actually having the impact because of the perpetuating of the stereotype of GBA?
Again, I feel like it all bottles down to the representation thing. I'm based in Cape Town, and mainly Cape Town production companies, I haven't seen female representation in the boardroom and in the creative, in writing rooms. It's still predominantly men-driven, and I feel like, again, it's men's perspectives that they're trying to share with everybody else without having the woman in the room. Currently, we were writing a series where we submitted it at SABC, and we had 3 guys in a room and we had 1 female. And it was a battle because Lerato will be pulling us in the way that she wanted to show women that are strong, and I was raised by a single woman myself, but instead of that, we kept holding on to the crutch of the stereotypes, like you were saying earlier about baby mamas that like money. That's not necessarily the truth when you look at how we, in the society that we are raised in. A lot of African homes, we have single mothers that raise both men and females.
Yeah.
And the conversation, again, we need to take responsibility as men, where we sort of not just address these issues with girls, oh, you need to be careful in this way and that way, but teach the responsibility in our sons. That's how we'll be able to get a much more inclusive conversation where the young women are more represented in the boardroom, even with pay, because this whole industry has been male-dominated for a very long time. And slowly but surely, I am proud of you, Mr. Villegas, like you said. You've got more females in your company that are in the creative side of things. But mainly the problem is we don't have enough females that are writers and producers. And even if you look, in the local industry, I grew up watching Good is Nice. Roberta Durant is one of the strongest producers in this country. But again, if you watch television, mainly you'll see male companies.
Yeah.
Even if you look in the service industry in Cape Town, Genevieve Hofmeyer is sort of the champion there. So again, you see women that are way stronger than men, and they've achieved much more. But again, I feel like they're overshadowed by males, and I don't feel like there's enough representation. So for us to be able to have a balanced conversation where men do take responsibility, because I feel like we always just shun it off the minute things get hot. And this is where we sort of shy away. But we need to take the responsibility for the things that, I know I did not commit that crime, but as a man, I need to be take that responsibility and say, yes, we are wrong in this aspect. So yeah, I feel like the representation, it needs to increase.
So that hashtag, not all men must fall, eh?
No.
No, no.
I just want to take, if there's any questions,
good
please do
men
let
out
us
there.
know.
Could I actually just add on what Nezile just said?
Go
Because I
ahead.
think you've just touched on really profound, statements. And yes, the issue of representation is so important. And I think in the chat, the previous one we had with the GIZ Step It Up session we had with Percy, we had also made mention that women need to be empowered in these writing rooms, right? And I would even take it a step further and say we need female head writers.
Yeah.
Because they have the power.
Exactly.
It's not enough to just have female writers or
It looks
female,
good.
because
Yeah.
they're sort of like told this is the storyline and you
Yes.
just need to now
Yes.
technically put it on paper and write a script. But who's actually creating these concepts? We need female creative producers.
Yeah.
We need creatives. You know what I mean? I think that's where representation starts. And I would even want to take it further and say we need women of color
Yeah.
in these positions, especially if we're now going to be talking about channels or sort of like audiences that are mass market. Who are at the forefront of running these writing rooms? Who are at the forefront of running these productions? And whose voice is actually domineering that space that we're in? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the type of transformation we need to see on the ground before we even get to what is represented or what is represented on screen.
Yeah.
Is how does that transformation take place in the writing rooms, in the producing rooms, within the production houses? How many black females do we have that own production houses? Do you know what I mean? And I think once we're able to touch on the core of that, we will slowly but surely start seeing our transformation within the content that we put out.
Yeah, absolutely. But does that fall onto
Yeah.
channel in terms of I want to see quotas in with production companies that I give work to be able to say what is your, not just your representation, but the decision-making power of the women in those companies. Are
Absolutely.
there quotas? Are there ways in which you can build that into clauses, into contracts?
I think it is essential that it falls onto channel. Whether we are able to put it on contracts, I'm not sure if that's where we're at now, because also you don't want to discriminate, right? But I think for me, as a black, young, liberated commissioning editor in a mass market space, it is my responsibility and my right to say, this is a great concept, but if you're going to be telling a story about 3 young women in the Eastern Cape, and you're a white woman or a white guy trying to tell this story, I don't think you're the right person to tell this. It is my responsibility to say
To
that.
be able to
Do you know what
say
I
that.
mean?
Yeah.
I think it is my responsibility to say, well, Kagiso, this is a lovely concept that you've brought for us, and it touches on such amazing stuff. But I think perhaps you should get a female series producer or a female creative producer to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, yes, channel can do that, and it's not necessarily a contractual thing that you need to put in there, but there is some leadership that needs to come from that end in order for us to make sure that the representation doesn't just happen on screen, but is also on ground. Because let me tell you, if that is not sort of like put in place, the content will show, and it will not be authentic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look, it's a very thin line. It's a very thin line. And before I get into that, I was just thinking about, we've never seen, because you're in the advertising space, we've never seen like a Sunlight soap ad where the man is washing the dishes.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? And I wash dishes. I'm hands-on. I mean, we grew up like that, piece, right?
Are you hands-on, Percy?
Yeah.
Do I not look like I'm hands-on? Can you not tell I'm hands-on? Should I have hidden cameras at my place to show you that I'm hands-on?
I'm just saying.
Can we organize a hands-on meeting?
Percy washing the dishes.
But in all honesty, I think we've come to a place in this country where South Africa is for all. In terms of color, in terms of gender, in terms of race, it's for all. In terms of cultures, even, it's for all. And we have to be very cautious. And just listening from what you are saying as well. And when we are trying to fix, but we might find ourselves creating more damage. We've had your Johnny Cleggs, who grew up and who would probably, who's more Zulu than I am. Do you know what I mean? So even in terms of storytelling, I think we should now start allow professionals to be professionals and do the work, but also be aware as content producers to say, and be open as well to say, listen, dude, I know it's about the money, but now this is not your space. And there's a reason why I'm saying this is not your space, because of where you're coming from in terms of the story. I personally think you should go and get a male content producer, or you need to go and get a female content producer, or you need to go and get an Afrikaner who understands the culture and how we do it, you know? Because sometimes we tend to get into our spaces about being female so much that we, instead of fixing, we are creating the problems. Or we get into a space of being male so much that we want to be so controlling, and we, because a lot of men feel like they're under attack right now. Let's also be honest to that, right? Where they feel, or no, we are under attack. I need to stand up for guys, and I'm standing up for guys where I shouldn't be. You know, and I'm standing up for females where I shouldn't be.
Where is that balance where there's entertainment value, there's a social responsibility, there's representation, but we're getting a story that is resonating, that is powerful, that is still able to get the numbers and get the advertisers in. What is that fine balance?
Yeah, it's tough.
Nezile.
Just to give you a nice, perfect example, recently I just came off a set called The Power. It's a UK show, shot here in Cape Town and in KZN and in the UK. The director was female. Her name is Reed. I've never seen anything like this ever in my life, where I would see the director picking the camera and start operating. The whole story is about 3 girls, one in the US, one in London, and one in Lagos, and we're following their journey. And basically they have powers. All 3 of them have powers. But they discover these powers based on the abuse society has shown them. So, because they don't have anyone to defend them. She basically surrounded herself with a lot of men, but she still had the control over everything.
Yeah.
So, like I say, having a story like that usually, all most of the sets that I've worked on, it's predominantly men that are directing these things, that are writing these things. But it was so beautiful just being part of her team and just seeing how she connected with the crew.
Yeah.
And how the woman empowerment, I saw women in positions that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Because
And you see that women are capable, absolutely
they're
capable.
more than capable.
Yeah.
Even in technical, one thing we lack in South Africa is female DOPs.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel
Hello,
like
Khalpi.
Shout out, Khalpi.
Yeah,
Hello, Natalie.
we need more technical, we need to fill in technical positions with female creatives and technicals.
Stefina?
I feel like you violated your NDA.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I want to see this.
What happens next?
What happens next?
But I'd just like to reiterate, I don't know whether to first start here or to first start with Kagiso. I understand Kagiso's point, but we're not doing an all lives matter here, right? We're not going to do that. Because as a black woman who works in this industry, in the technical and in the creative, it is extremely hard. I feel like I was hoping I didn't have to say this on this panel.
Yeah.
The challenges that I will have as a black director who is a woman are very different to a director who's a black man and a director who's a white man or a white woman. It is unique in ways sometimes you will never understand.
Intersectional.
Yeah, I've been in boardrooms where Salamina and I will walk in and I'm the director, she's the producer, and we'll still get asked, who's your boss? Is your boss still on the way? You know, so we cannot have an all lives matter situation here. I'm not even gonna go down that route of, oh no, but even the guys, it's not that. It's not, because we're talking about the female or woman technicians, the Gaupis of this world.
Yeah.
Gaupi has worked her ass off to get to where she is. And she is 10 times better than some of the DOPs that she has to compete with. But do you know how hard it is for if I want to work with Gaupi, I have to fight to work with Gaupi. I have to convince people that she is the person I want to work with.
Yeah.
I have to say, if she doesn't deliver, then fire me. I have to go that. I have to
make the
fight.
stakes so high.
I have to fight. And then the question becomes, who fights for me? Who goes into the room and says, I insist on working with Stefina as a director? If Stefina is not fighting for herself, if Gaupi is not fighting for herself, Who is?
Yeah.
So I am not going to have a conversation of all lives matter because at the moment we're talking about GBV.
Bottom of the food chain.
We're talking about women, and we're talking about violence, and I understand we're talking about physical violence, right?
Yeah.
But there's
The
a different
language.
kind of violence as well.
Yeah.
Not paying me what I'm supposed to get paid
Is
is a
violence.
violence.
Yeah.
It's a violent act
Yes.
on me and my family.
Yes.
Right? Not or saying, oh, women are too emotional, that's why I don't want to work with them. That is a violent act on me and any other woman that's supposed to be on that set.
Yeah.
So it breaks my heart. But this is my daily.
Yeah.
This is my life. This is every day, every second, everything I have to do. Making baby mamas. If I didn't die, it's a miracle. Because everything is a struggle.
fight.
It's a fight. So I'm not having a conversation about all lives matter, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Because it's not that vibe.
Exactly. So it is very much still a problem. We don't, but this is a lived experience. This is a lived experience.
She's actually
and
being quite
ongoing.
mild right now.
Yeah.
Saying it's a
Are
lot.
men ready to trust women to make the decisions on sets?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
You want me to respond after this? Of course I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
Of course I'm going to say yes.
And I think this is where I'm going with this, you know, and I'm not saying this, you know, to kind of, you know, or to sweep what's happening under the carpet. But this is my experience, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Kagiso, I'm speaking on behalf of the experience of having to travel and even having to represent Swift, you know, in many of these sessions. And I mean, every time a production starts, I'd go in and having to make the guys aware of sexual harassment and you know, how it could affect women, you know, in that space. But in one of the sessions that we were doing, we realized that men have switched off. And not because they are bad, and not because they agree with all these ills that are happening, but even people who are in the industry, let's say like as a male myself, who's a public figure, in these forums, they feel like they just need to say the right things. So that, you know, and by us saying the right things, is that we're not interrogating the issue. Yes, we do understand that a Khaupi has to work extra hard, you know, but for the fact that how we are addressing these issues, we are addressing these issues in such a way that a man says, okay, I need to be quiet. You know, and hence like the response here piece to say, how do I then come after that? How do I not sound bad? How do I not sound like I'm this perpetrator on set? I'm not. I want to support this thing. A lot of men are saying that on sets. I want to support, but I don't know how to do it. And that's what I'm saying, Steph, we have to be open to it. In order for us to fix the problem, we have to deal with it deeper. But if we're coming up if we're just saying men are trash, like what we're saying, men are trash, we must also understand the damage that we're starting to cause. Because there's a young boy, when we were talking about this, there's a young boy who's listening to the radio and hearing men are trash. And this is the same young boy that I, as Kagiso, need to show him and be a role model for you must grow up and treat women fine. But all he's hearing is that I am trash, I am trash, I am trash. Let's find the balance. We have to find the balance. And I know there's so much anger. And I'm not speaking on behalf of Kagiso. I'm speaking in terms of the experience that I've seen. And if we are coming to set and we're going to address this to men, let's talk about structure now. Sorry, I'm going to take a bit long. Let's talk about structure. We need to have structure. I go in there as a Swift representative, and we talk about this, and we educate men who sexual harassment is not fine.
For men and women.
Yeah, no, but mostly we go men. And already the men have switched off. And I'm being honest with this. And then there's a document, you know, one pager where they need to sign it to say that, you know, I'm aware of how I could be sexually harassing a person. And we want to call it a person because not just women and also men. But in terms of the structure of the industry, nobody is obliged to sign it. So how are we fighting this thing when the system itself is not helping us to make this a law?
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, I mean, let's go back to number one, speaking about the anger, number one, speaking about, I don't know what to do. I don't think it's the responsibility of women who are already the oppressed, who are already at the bottom, to be teaching men basic professionalism and sex.
Yeah.
Right? So already the burdens are already on us. We're already the victims of GBV. We're already the ones not being paid enough. We're already the ones who nobody trusts to do anything on set except to take an instruction, you know? And usually you have...
walk on set and they're like, oh, so you're the makeup artist. Thank you for coming.
But then we
So
must be
then-
dealing with those men. You know what I mean? But there's a way in how we should be doing
I
it.
love what you just said now.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I confronted this thing.
Yeah.
It was on a set where we were just shown, like, we were given, like, contracts like this thick, and we were told that there was sexual harassment, wall posters everywhere, like toll-free lines, like you could come and say it anonymously.
Yes.
But there was no education behind it.
Yes.
So what it made the men still do the same thing, but in a much more hush-hush manner. Because they still ogling girls and they still speaking like, there's no change in culture. But now we're just hiding.
Behind it, which is not solving the problem.
So which is why those sessions that he's doing.
Yes. From your experience, I see exactly, it's actually true. Because like, before I came here, my missus warned me not to speak out of pocket because I'm going to be a meme.
You're married right.
So I told her, like, I have to speak my heart because I think that's the reason why I'm here.
Absolutely.
And to actually properly engage without just hiding behind, like, a contract.
Yeah.
So we do need the education as men. In this past set that I was on, I was actually, because of this panel, I was telling, like, my friends, like, stop speaking like this. And I could see, like, they're getting annoyed with me. Oh, now you think you better. And it was on that, it was just the consciousness.
Yes.
Because of what I know, the responsibility that I have.
And that's
Can
all
I
we
tell
have.
you,
That's
you
all
telling
we
your
have.
friend that, even though he
It's-
was annoyed, was so impactful. Because
Yeah.
if I was on the same set and I said that to a friend, I would have been a bitchy woman,
Yeah.
bitching
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why
Yeah.
the Swift sessions we do, I've done a couple of Kagiso, they're so impactful in the sense that he goes there and he talks first. Also, it's annoying because I'm like, no, why must I sit down and not talk?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the impact
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
He goes there, he talks, we show them the videos, we engage. But because it's a man that's calling men out, it's so much more impactful. And I think that is part of where the change is going to happen,
Yeah.
is not
Men-
us as women always having to correct men,
Yes.
especially with everything that we have to be
Exactly.
dealing with. It's
Exactly.
not our responsibility
Exactly.
to educate these men.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then the same argument would be for the racial dynamic.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it always
Yeah.
black people that
Exactly.
have to tell white people
Exactly.
that that's racist, that's
Yeah.
ignorant?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
need to do your homework and know that what
Exactly.
you're doing is wrong. Why is it
Yeah.
on me to always call you out? Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to sexual harassment, we
Yeah.
forget, you know.
Yes.
When it's racial talks, we are all Black Lives
Yes,
Matter and
yes.
we're all standing together. It's,
Yes.
as soon as it's femicide and it's women,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black men all of a sudden have amnesia. It's
Yeah.
like, what struggle? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm digressing.
Yeah.
But I just think that men need to call men out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
So,
what I mean?
Kagiso, by
Sorry.
being an ally, by
Yeah.
speaking to your
Yes.
brothers, by
Yeah.
telling your guys on set that's already doing something.
Yeah.
That's already, you know,
Yeah.
does that feel like a big responsibility?
It does, because it's sort of like I'm sort of like the feminist poster boy now. That's how they all look at me, and they're gonna start.
Well done. That's a good way to
They're
be
gonna start name calling me.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't mind the name calling because I know
that's
it's
a good thing.
childish. Film sets are like high school,
Yeah.
and we need to grow up as men
Yes.
by just addressing other men, like at the lunch table, even by the standby gear, because that's where all these things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I deal a lot with cast members, so there's always those remarks about like lamtwana, lamtwana.
Yeah.
So I feel like now, like, thank you to this panel and this opportunity.
Especially
Yeah.
the extras.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's now I feel like I have even more of a responsibility to sort of educate the brothers that are just around me, just to behave better
Yeah.
and have respect for for every female. Because we were given birth by mothers, and we have sisters, and we have
Absolutely.
wives
Yeah.
and daughters. And I don't think like it extends further than just our immediate families.
And I think these are things that people know already. You mentioned earlier how many of us have been raised by single mothers.
Yeah.
60% of women in the hospital when they leave in South Africa say single mother. You know, so we all know these things coming from home. Like Akhiso said, you know, you wash the dishes and everything, but we don't see this on television.
No.
We don't see it the way we act on set. So eventually everybody has to catch up because the world is changing. Time is up.
You know, one of the interesting things, and we say, everybody has to catch up, you know, and I like what you're also saying, is that first, don't feel bad about, you know, being the femicide poster boy.
Feminist.
Feminist, yeah.
Because femicide, that's a different
You know,
thing.
feminist poster boy. I think I've been one for a very long time, you know. But and even when we walk in, you know, with Fabian, and we hear to talk about, you know, sexual harassment at work already, you know, I feel the pressure as a man where I'm seen as a sellout, you know. But yeah, and I go ahead and I do it, you know. But this is my personal experience, is that it's not a difficult thing to do, and I found a way in how to break the ice. And I mean, when we're in there, you know, I've got a way in how I can educate somebody. This is wrong, you know. And I look at it as, even with a child, you can't really educate by spanking. You know what I mean? There's ways in how you would deal with a child. And I mean, we disagree on those things because Rona, we were educated by spanking, and we are educated, you know. But there's a way in how you also, and maybe as somebody who also has a psychology background, is how you deal with certain issues, how you deal with certain approach. And once we started changing the approach, because the first thing we'd do is put up the videos and say, you know, man in this and man in that and man in this, and men would switch off. And because by law, they were allowed to get up and go, and they can't be fired. They're not forced to be in those sessions. But once we changed our tactic in how we spoke to them and having to educate them, then men started engaging into these conversations. And then we started hearing a different side as to why they do this. And we also found out that some of them, and yes, this is not me, but some of them also, you know, were like, boss, I've been doing this in those sessions because of the approach that we took. You know, they said, I've been doing this, and I want to apologize because I didn't know. And this guy genuinely didn't know that saying a comment like that was wrong. Or because, and they also said that because it's such a very casual industry. Where,
it's been normalized.
It's been normalized. And he really apologized.
Yeah.
So we need to find a way in how to solve
I'd like
the
to
problem.
jump in there.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I'm more in the TV space. And I think people in management have to create a proper culture that is that does not accommodate such behavior.
Yeah.
You have to create a culture of intolerance when it comes to such things. And so my two bosses, my executive producers, Pato and Gwid, those are two men who are not involved in the day-to-day running of Legacy or The River. So as a producer on The River, I'm more exposed to whatever issues that we have. And we've had a couple of issues. We've had a couple of issues.
Why are you looking at me?
Because I'm wondering if you know about some of those issues.
Well, now she knows.
Now she knows.
And before I carry on, I'm wondering if, I wonder if this is in my contract. Will I have a job after this? But
he already
but it's
broke his
something,
contract.
well, yeah. So I'll follow you. So we had a couple of incidents. One of the incidents was when we had a girl, a female actress who was dressed in sexy lingerie, and the moment that she walked on set, there were comments from the guys, and we then, so I wasn't there, but the line producer found out about this. She's female. She found out about this, and she stopped everything immediately. And the guys were called to the side.
Good.
They were told that you will be fired if you carry on doing this.
There have to be consequences.
You will be fired because this is not how you behave. This is an environment where women frequently expose themselves emotionally, physically, and whatever other way. So that painted the picture immediately that this is not a place where we tolerate such behavior. So there's a quote that I saw that says something along the lines that if you are not intentionally inclusive, then you will unintentionally exclude.
There we go.
And that is really that's how we do things.
Yeah.
So we as a company, and I mean this is not some indaba, so I'm not trying to promote the company.
Yeah.
But you know, we're not bidding for tenders. But I'm incredibly proud of how we've handled such things. We had another incident, a more serious incident, and I shared this in the previous round table that we did. So in TV shows, there will always be love stories or whatever the stories that require you, the actress, to kiss an actor. Now, the reality is that you know, it's not the character that kisses the person, it's the actual actor that kisses the person. We had an incident where we had an actor coming in to shoot. So on a long-running show, you'll always have cameo roles, people who come in and out. People who might not be familiarized with the culture that
On set,
Ekaya as Cincy.
Yeah.
So we had an actor coming in, and he had a scene with this girl. It wasn't a closed set, because in our minds, there's nothing happening here. No one is undressing. They are dressed underneath, but they were in bed. And later, we found out that got a call from this actress who told me that the actor had said something to her, which was completely inappropriate. One of the ADs had also heard this, and he had written it in his report, but the actress got to me before the AD got to me. And the way that we treated this was very decisive and intentional. I remember sending an email to my bosses saying, horror of horrors. This happened on our set. I was actually so traumatized because I spoke to this actress, who not only is an actress, but also a friend of mine. And I remember thinking, but where was everyone else? You know, did other people see this? And what the fuck is going on? So sent an email, and we made a decision there and then that we're going to recast, because we couldn't have a person of that nature coming here to contaminate our set.
So kudos to you and your team, but that's not what happens in a lot of instances. And we've seen this year a lot of people come forward with very horrific stories, like you said.
So I'm actually going there. I'm actually going there. So now we realize that there are a lot of dynamics, and you know, I'm about to throw some productions under the bus. So we realize that this is not the norm, because there's a lot to consider, and it cost us a lot of money, because this guy had shot about, I think, 14 scenes. And we had to reshoot those scenes. First, we had to recast. We had to look for the actor, and then we had to reshoot those scenes. And then call in the agent, and then call in that actor, and say, your actor has violated an actress. We've told this actress that if she wants to open a case, we are behind her fully. And these are the steps that she needs to take, and whatever else. So it is very easy for a production company to take the easy way out and call the actor to the side and say, listen, Askis, man, you know, these things happen. We will talk to him. We'll talk to him. And we'll make sure that he doesn't do it again. You know, that doesn't protect the victim. If anything, if anything, it actually puts her on blast because she becomes the person who's too sensitive, who complains, who's trying to bring the production to its knees. And this, guys, this is something that's been happening in production companies
We know
for the
this.
longest time.
Yeah.
I once worked for a production company where there was a lead actor. Every actress that came to the show complained about this guy. That the script would say they hug at the end, and then this guy goes for a kiss. You know? And it's very easy to justify that and to masquerade this as, but I'm in character, but we are in a relationship. Yes, I'm a method actor, but we are married. You know, we are married. You know, and we should see kissing on screen.
And I think that's where things are starting to change in the industry in terms of intimacy coordination, right? So we have to, yes, we're actors and yes, we're acting. And these are our characters, it's not really us. You want to speak to intimacy coordination?
I love what you just touched on now. I've seen a lot of pushback, especially from male directors, when it comes to the intimacy coaches. Like they would want to isolate the actor before the intimacy coach comes in. So I feel like even as the industry, it's like we're just covering ourselves and we're not really genuinely trying to make it better. Like recently, I've started seeing like where the whole crew will be taken out of the stage where we're doing like closed sets, and where it's actually mentioned on a call sheet that we need to be sensitive today because of the current scenes that we're doing. And usually those scenes have to do with intimacy. But like I say, the intimacy coaches too that I've spoken to, they say in the local industry, usually they don't have budget for them. So the only thing they do, they come and do a workshop and then they walk away. But that doesn't help.
Exactly.
That doesn't help the female actresses on set that have to deal with that particular scene.
Yes. So execs have to start thinking about how
I
do
need
we...
to say something on this.
Okay.
I need to say something on this. Okay, Steph,
and
please,
then
please go first.
Kagiso. Steph, go ahead.
I just remember when you guys talking about kissing scenes. We had a kissing scene, remember?
Yeah.
Did you not? We had a kissing.
At that time, we were so... I was nervous. I was very nervous. Stop it. Stop it. I was young.
You were nervous.
I was nervous. But listen, actually,
that's not what I wanted to say.
I want to talk about it.
We're talking about industry, we're talking about production companies, we're talking about work. But we live within a bigger society, right? And I think it's also important to acknowledge that this is a societal problem before it becomes an industry problem, right? And I remember, you know, this is so ingrained in our society here. I remember being in Canada a few years ago with another director. So there were two black girls, and we're walking, and we had been there for like 2-3 weeks, right? And doing a lot of walking, something we don't do when we're here. And then this one day, we're walking to set, and we walk, you know, there's a park across the road, and there's these young boys there. And so we hear, hey, yo, you with the fat ass? Yo. That had not happened to us, right?
Yeah.
So now we're like, hey, man, it means we're still pretty, you know? We get to set. They ask us, because we were using public transport, were you guys safe? We're like, yeah, we're safe. Hey, but you know the strangest thing happened? This only happens back home. We weren't expecting it to happen here. But we're walking across the park, and then these boys, you know, started going, hey, you beautiful girl, come here. They got so upset. They were like, what park is that? Let's call the cops.
So
we're like,
culture.
Whoa. Yeah?
Wow.
Call the cops?
Culture.
They're like, no. They're not supposed to do that. Wow. That is wrong. How dare they? Which park was it? Where were you walking? And they, you know, this is their culture.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that. You need permission.
Yes, consent.
To even give a compliment.
Yeah. What a beautiful world.
Dude, I was shocked.
To Canada.
This is me. If you look pretty today and you're a guy and you want to to
Compliment.
compliment Sarah, you go, can I give you a compliment? And she can say no. No, not today.
No, not here.
Not here. And I think this is the problem we have with our country.
Yeah.
Consent. Consent. Because you calling me a baby. Consent. Did I
Yeah.
give you permission to say that?
But that's the entitlement and patriarchal society that we're trying to dismantle with men to see why it is harmful for both men and women. Right?
There's three guys that spoke, and all of them touched on something. But before that, I actually want to just give a special shout out to Netflix. So I'm not selling them. I was shooting with them. I was shooting, a show called Jiva. It's still coming, and they taught us. They took us through the whole process. There was a session where they would sit and tell us, the thing where you talk about, it was not just about gender-based, but it was also about racism and saying the right things and saying, can I compliment you today? So it is happening in our industry, but it's said that it's being brought on by an international company where it's supposed to be done from here. And if it's going to be done from here, we need people who are going to understand our industry, who are running it, who are from here.
Yeah.
Let's be honest now, and be frank. Because we do have a department, and these rules are supposed to be coming in via the department.
But we live within a society.
Yes, but look, Steph, I hear that, but I'm saying now you were talking about the industry, the life outside, and now we are talking about the industry. We need to be implementing these rules. We need to be able to say, as I sign a contract in my next job, it's part of my contract. I don't have an option not to sign. Whether it's it's something that binds me, that if I commit a sexual harassment act,
You're incentivized
then,
somehow.
you know what I mean? It needs to be part of our contract.
But I think that's
the
also
only
the
way-
work
yeah.
that Swift does.
Yes, so I
and
think-
I think, Swift has done so much in a short space of time with no resources.
Yes.
And
And that's where my
think
problem is. Why
in
don't
the
you have
sh-
resources?
Because also, it's so hard
You must
to
have
be doing
resources.
this on your own.
You mustn't be
right?
doing on your own. The department must be supporting
Well,
this.
it's
my point.
starting
Well,
to change.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah,
And I think it's
go for it.
important to say, and it's good that you applaud the wellness and safety contact
Yeah,
officers.
but guys,
that-
it must be speed up fast.
It's
It must happen because
yeah.
as you and I are sitting here,
Yeah.
somebody
People are filming
somebody
somewhere.
on a set is getting
true.
sexually harassed.
Absolutely.
Why should Swift be sweating?
Yeah.
It's not Swift anymore, it's Swift sweating. Because they're struggling to, why should it be a struggle? You look at corporate, you look at even in government institutions, at other departments, it's part of your contract. Why is it that it's so difficult and why is it such an issue for it to be part of our
Yeah,
contract?
Absolutely.
Okay,
so I think
sorry.
that's starting to
Sorry.
filter down.
But then there was that thing
in
you
terms
said.
of, it's what he said about
Mara, they said.
our productions, our executives, our channel willing to invest in these
They have to.
interventions. And they are
They
starting,
are.
and I
They
must
are.
applaud to the NFVF, I must applaud the Department of Sports, Art and Culture, I must applaud the German Development Corporation, because they are starting to fund something called the Safety Contact Officer Project. It is a pilot,
Yeah.
because we've just started to actually start doing something about it. So we're getting professional psychologists, we're getting professional
I love
counselors,
it. I
we're
love
getting
it.
independent people who have nothing to do with, if I report this direct, I'm never going to work again.
Yes.
Percy won't
If
give
I-
me a job.
If I don't go to Percy's,
So shout out to Swift.
shout out to Swift.
For me, I'm being straight and frank. Shout out to Swift, and I'm not, and I'm asking that the people who we are knocking on their doors and
Please open up.
see the change that Swift is coming with,
Yeah.
and make it speedy. That's
Yes.
all we are asking for, because, like we said, as we started, a woman in our
By
film
now.
industry. You look at the SABC. SABC is like a hospital, ne? And no, I'm saying this because it's dark. It's you know how many women have been raped at the SABC working night shifts. It shouldn't be something that Swift is pushing now. It should have been part of our department. Okay, but can I just say something one more, because I know I'm taking long. I'm talking about the instances that you're talking about when I piss, and you, Steph. One of the sessions that we were doing with Swift, one of the things that came up, and this is not me, all right, but it's something that I also as an actor have experienced. When you have intimate scenes, and I'm going to come to the thing, payment. We don't have money to pay for intimacy coaches, which is something that
Budget.
should be in the contract.
Should be,
if I'm
yeah.
going to write a script, then I should put it in the budget. Ne? Okay, moving on. My thing was an actor came to me and he said, you know, when it comes to intimacy scenes, as a guy, I don't know whether this is, I should feel bad or not, or for saying this, but I feel neglected as a man, as an actor, is in that scene. Because when we go to that scene, it becomes about the actress and whether she's comfortable in what she's wearing, how we're going to do it, close set or not close set. And he says, but they forgot about me. It's not like I woke up in the morning and I was like, today it's Steph, do you know? And he was like, nobody asked me if I have a padded underwear or not. Because for me, it shows. And for me, that's why every time they say cut, and everybody goes to the monitor to go and watch the scene, I'm sitting there. He says, we never get considered as well as, and he was saying, and the sad reality for me is that he had to come and say it on the side, you know? And that's what we're talking about here, you know? And when we say, we gotta have these conversations openly, and I know, it's mostly actresses that are affected by this, but men, I just felt I needed to say that they're also affected by certain things on set.
Absolutely, and if we start to standardize that when an intimate scene happens, both people are being coached, that's how it starts to happen. Men also start to come up with questions. Men also start coming up with solutions for everybody. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
But I think it also goes back to approach, and I think it also goes back to representation and how the message will hit home. I know currently with Gomorrah, we're busy with a pedophilia storyline whereby a very hot teacher is currently like literally forcing herself on a very dumb boy who has nothing going for him. And so the stories that we're unpacking with this, or sort of like what we are going into, is how culturally and in a society, no one is believing this boy, because they're like, how would someone looking like that woman come impose herself on a boy like you that lives in the shack? And so...
And why would you complain about it?
And why would you complain about it?
Yeah.
And how is it that a woman
She's
can rape
so
a man?
hot.
So it was all these things that we are unpacking, right?
Yeah.
And you're starting to see with the conversation that men are now getting it because it's happening to
them
a
as
guy.
well.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, and I think it also does go to approach, and it's just approaching... I mean, the tone and the way you approach is not sort of like attacking, but it's to say, guys, this is a human problem.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, women are predominantly at the receiving end of all of this.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think with this storyline, people's
You
point of
see
views
the other
regarding
side.
rape, not just for women and men, has changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would just wanted to collaborate that in terms of content and how
Huge
we
fan of that
represent it as
storyline,
well.
by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any
I
other
am.
storylines
For
that
real.
you guys have seen that have dealt with the issue really well?
You
Gomorrah.
guys have done quite a lot here.
Yeah, but I don't want to be the one to say it.
I'll say it for you. Blow in your own horn.
You know what I mean? Because then I'm sending myself a voice note. You know? Thank you, Flavia. I was so unaware. But since you're forcing me to...
Messi, let's got one example.
For me, just to something small.
Yeah.
I feel like the audience is smart, and I feel like content producers need to understand that we do know what intimacy is. We don't need to see the whole act. And you would be able to even gain a much more bigger audience if you would just cut it down on this too much heaviness.
Yeah.
My mother is
100%.
stuck watching programs from India because she knows those programs don't have all
They
the
don't go all the
profanity.
way.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, it's the same thing. West Africa doesn't show profanity on television.
Yeah.
We're the only country where it's just some free willy-nilly, like anyone can do it. So, especially while we don't have the budget and the education, that's just limited.
So there's creative ways
But
to
that's
still tell without showing every single thing. Or it's creative license to be
yes
able
and
to.
no. And
Yes.
I really want to hear what the producers are going to say about it.
so the thing with kissing scenes and intimate scenes, I feel like over the years, I've realized guys treat those, male directors will treat that scene very different to how a female director will treat it. So I've found that guys on set will want a kiss for long, kiss for long. Yeah, I want a close up. Okay, now touch her bum, touch it for longer. Well, a girl is like, okay, we've kissed. I need a white, I need a close up of this. Cool, let's move on.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, the story has been told, right? But I think it's also important, speaking of GBV, how we treat GBV on screen, right? Early this year, I did a
Public
PSA.
service announcement.
Yeah.
And I remember pitching it to our team and going, what I don't want from this PSA is to show women who have been beaten up.
Yeah.
I don't want that because we've seen that. And I'm also, I don't think this lends itself to that because I don't also want to add to the desensitizing of seeing a blue eye and seeing women cry, right? On the project I'm working on now, there was a scene where, you know, the suggestion was that we were going to throw these women's bodies into the river. And I was like, I get that, and I'm for that, it's cinematic and stuff, but let's interrogate ourselves as storytellers and ask ourselves, is it necessary to show the female body in that way? And I was speaking to 2 directors who are male, right? And the showrunner immediately said, don't even finish, Steph. Don't finish your sentence because I got you.
Yeah.
Good.
I got you.
Good.
And and this is why it's important to be in these rooms.
Yeah.
Because as a woman director, had I not been there, we would not be having that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I was just worried about a girl being through.
Yeah.
And when I didn't even want to bring it up. Right. And when I did, he got it. But it's that, and he was like, "This is why you're here.
Oh, and you're empowered enough
This
to
is
be
why
able
we
to
need
speak
this
up."
perspective.
Yes.
You know.
And I like just the creative way in which you solved for your public service announcement without us ever seeing any bodies, without us ever seeing. But we got, and
The
it was so
message was
powerful,
there, yeah.
the way in which you did that.
Thank
you
you,
know,
thank
so that's really good. Percy, are you with us?
Yeah. So you're asking about the creative.
Yes, solutions
Yeah.
for.
I mean, there are a couple of ways, and for us, the one thing that tested us the most was COVID,
Yeah.
where we were not allowed to show any kissing, and it forced us to think out of the box in terms of intimacy without being physical.
Yeah.
So there are ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And Steph, it's not always the the male directors. I'll tell you this. We had a scene. Shame. We had a scene where these 2 were kissing, so the one lady was cheating on her husband. You know, those are stories that should always get in telenovelas. People always cheat. So then I get the offline cut, and I watch it. I'm like, yo, I mean, Pornhub is nothing on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, sorry, it just came out. Yeah, Basha.
I can give you the web if you want to research for your next project.
www.
So immediately I say to this director, look, we broadcast at 8:00. This is a family show. This will never, Wanda is our commissioning editor. She will never, ever accept this. Ever. So she said, yeah, look, and it was beautifully shot, and the actress was comfortable, and the actor was comfortable. So what we do is we have conversations with each actor individually. Look, there's a scene. This is what we'd like to do. Are you comfortable? Yes, no, fine. What's the alternative? So I told this director, look, you've got to give me another cut because this is not going to fly. And she was very passionate about this. And before our commissioning editor could actually, because I thought, well, look, maybe I need to loosen up. You know, maybe I need to have a bit of a life. Let me actually submit this. But then I thought, no, actually no, because if I feel like this, I know she's going to feel that way as a woman. So I took a clip and I sent her a WhatsApp. and the response was written in capital letters. Said absolutely
Said
no.
hell no.
This
Hell
will
to
never
the no.
see the light of day. You absolutely have to recut this. It has to be done properly. So this again takes us to, I think it's a question that you had, which you answered, Flavia, that we do need the people at the top to be accountable and to hold us responsible. Because if it's a banana republic, then everyone will do whatever they want
Whatever
to do.
goes. Are there any questions from the floor? We've got an amazing audience here as well as online. Any? Yes, I know you have a question.
I do. I just, I don't even know where to start. I think, because we live, thank you. Excuse me.
Protocol, COVID protocols observed.
Okay, thank you. I think number one, as some of you were saying, is that we live in a world, our film world is a product of our society. And for me, I believe we're in the most fortunate position because as filmmakers, films, like you said, they are so powerful. They can dictate how you dress. They can dictate what you speak about. You're talking about what they speak about in traffic. We have that power within us. There are fashions. Versace was launched through a film. If we are not going to understand that this is not a destination, that film is not a destination, to make a film is not a destination, but it is a tool, in the same way that a hammer is a tool, we can either use a hammer to build shacks, which we've been doing, and if you don't trust me, look how society looks, or we can use it to build houses. And it's upon us to not be afraid, because I even see you coming from the commercial side of broadcasting. I've had a few meetings there as well, where we're trying to argue the point of how do we tell something of substance and yet entertain? And not just give people entertainment without substance. Because for me, that's called a distraction. And we can't afford to keep distracting ourselves when we have the highest levels of gender-based violence, when we have the highest levels of crime, when we have the best racists in the world. All are here in South Africa. We have like the best of the worst. If there were Olympics every year, we'd take the title. So it is now with us. When we reckon whoever we is our God, and he says, I gave you that stage, and you said the only thing I made was people dance. That's gonna be a really hard session for us to be testifying. So do I have a question?
You have a testimony, that's for sure.
Preach.
I'm sorry, I told you don't give me the mic. So my question now is, and I'll pose it to everyone. I always say when I work with DOPs and I come with impossible shots, and they'll come to me and be like, Zoe, we can't shoot this. I'm like, don't say it's impossible, go and find the possibility within it. So now as filmmakers and as a broadcaster, how can we go forward creating work of substance that still entertains? There's certain rules when you make an entertainment film or a TV show, the 3-act structure, whatnot. We can still apply it. You can say, I want to make a film on gender-based violence and still use that same thing you would have done if you were going to make an interesting drama. So how do we go forward now and say we're not going to use that? That's an excuse to say it's impossible. I'm throwing that excuse away. How do I go forward in my next project and say I will do substance that also entertains? Thank you.
Thank you. One more question at the back, and then to Diane in the front.
So this is not really a question, it's from our social media. They are just agreeing with you guys on, yes, we must find balance on the first part of when we started. And then there is another lady just said, teach the young boy what they thinking behind men are trash is because it's not made to make young boys feel worthless. There are conversations that men need to have to understand where women are coming from instead of saying, don't say that or don't express your anger in that way. And then there's another one that says, we need to see more strong, independent women or girls on screens. The damsel is distressed character, it's outdated.
Damsel in distress is outdated. Amen. Okay, we have one last question in the front.
Hi, guys. So I'm coming from the end product. I represent exhibition. And I think that we got to remember that. This industry is not just about the production houses, it's about the end as well. And I think as much as our stories can tell and make a difference, so can our celebrities, so can our heroes that make these films. So I would love to see a swift initiative at New Metro Cinemas.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, just to get back to your point that you made from the first question, just in terms of the role of content producers, artists, creatives. I read a quote the other day that says that the role of art is to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed.
Wow.
You know, so I think that pretty much sums it up.
Sums everything up.
Yeah, yeah. So, any responses just in terms of the three comments we've had in terms of your role? I think we touched this in the beginning, but just in terms of how you're going to do that going forward. I think let's do that just to start to wind down the conversation.
Okay, so the quote that I
intentional.
Yes, it was Mzamo Masito who said this. He's a marketer.
Please say it again. It was so powerful. If
He
you
said,
intentionally
if you don't intentionally and deliberately include, you unintentionally exclude. And that really is our mantra in all the shows that we are telling. Being aware of the issues that affect society and telling the stories. We at some point in time told a story of a woman who had been in prison for the longest time after she stabbed her husband to death. So she had been defending herself. She had gone to the police. She had called family meetings. She had spoken to everyone and no one was listening to her. And then in a quest to defend herself, she stabbed this man. And then when she came back, she now had the challenge of having to be accepted by society because this is how she's viewed by society. Now, of course, that's not an ideal story to tell. And this was not us saying that if you're in an abusive relationship, kill the person who's abusing you. But that was us reflecting what happens in society and that there are questions that then need to be asked and solutions that have to be found when those women are put on blast and there is no other way for them. So this really was us saying, let us talk about this. Let us ask the questions. Let's hold the police accountable, the neighbors accountable, because we all know that woman, Wala Pekonen, who's always being beaten up by the husband because she runs to your house and then your mom has to go and talk to the husband and calm him down. It's been happening for years. But what are we doing about it? So it really is, and I think it's what everyone said, it's a societal thing. It's a culture thing that if we from the word go that we see something wrong happening, let us address it immediately.
Okay. Stefina, going forward?
I'll pass it to Nezile.
While you collect your thoughts.
While I'm still digesting.
It's stepping up
Yeah.
as gentlemen.
Step it up for gender violence.
Stepping up as gentlemen and calling each other out and being responsible and just educating each other. And like, I love what the lady said about Swift, because I feel like that organization needs more resources and we need more education, especially the crew members. The representation, I don't know who can I speak to about the representation because it feels like a godly thing. Maybe I can speak to the channels or whoever, but like, we need more women in powerful positions. We need more films with female leads. And like that. Like for me, if we could just up our game in terms of that, and then just take responsibility as production companies to make our women feel safe and loved on film sets. It's like even children, which is something we did not touch on. I've seen it where we forget that we have kids on set and we run out of time. And or sometimes we don't even have childminders that are trained to actually do that, where we just hire a cousin to just come take care of these kids. So we really need to invest in taking care of children on set and our females on set. And we just have to take responsibility and stop passing it on.
Amen.
I'm
Thanks. Okay. I'll chime in after Stefina.
I agree with you.
Comrades.
Yes, I what I wanted to say is, sometimes as a country, all of us, we like using big words, like gender-based violence, xenophobia. And sometimes I feel like we get lost in that. We get lost in the big words, and we do beautiful campaigns in the to promote these big words that we've come up with. But we do PR campaigns on those words, and not it doesn't always get to grassroots. It doesn't always get to the people that we need it to get to. So here we are talking about GBV. We've even given it, an acronym. But does somebody ohleze clip down somewhere?
100%.
Will they say, stop your gender-based violence? They're not going to say that, right? So I think sometimes we need to clear the fluff. Clear the fluff. Let's get straight to the point. And with everything that affects our society, be it gender-based violence, be it xenophobia, be it drinking and driving, we need to be vigilant at all times. It's not about picking, perhaps it's not about picking one struggle. There's many struggles. There's plenty. And unfortunately, up until this point, the people who've been at the forefront of leading a lot of these struggles has been women, because obviously we affected the most by it, right? I'm happy to see, and I'm happy that I know some men who will stand tooth and nail defending women, ensuring that women feel safe when they're around, because that is very important. I'm happy that I know guys like that. I'd love to live in a South Africa where I'm not scared to walk down Catherine Drive at 8 o'clock at night. And I'll tell you, I'm not scared of women. I'm just gonna say, if I'm scared of walking at that time of the night, it's not because I'm scared of Sarah.
There we go.
I'm not scared of Flavia. I'm not scared, I'm not scared of women. Unfortunately. Right? So I think we need to call a spade a spade.
Yes.
And not only focus on the big words that we use. Let's just call it what it is. And it needs to be in our everyday talk.
How we talk.
Except when we get to say, dumelang, everybody. Today we are not raping everybody.
We're not touching anybody.
We're not touching anyone inappropriately. We are asking for consent.
Yes.
And this needs to be in our everyday, because how else? We can't always wait for the big conference to discuss it. It needs to be, when the 5-year-old boy is hitting the 2-year-old boy, we usually say, no. You must say, no, Buti, you do not hit a girl. Not you don't hit your sister. You don't hit a girl. And then you don't hit another person. Because we are a violent society.
Generally.
Our answer is violence. If anything happens, if the taxi drivers are unhappy,
very quick.
Violence. Anything is,
So we need to find other solutions.
Let's find other solutions, which means we need to talk about it every day. This needs to be like our, hi, how are you? Are you safe? I need to see you walking with Kagiso. I haven't seen you in a while, Flavia. Who's this guy? Do you feel safe around him? Hi, guy.
There we go.
Does she feel safe around you? Oh, okay, cool. No, just checking. Lovely to see you. So, next time. It needs to be that common in our talk.
In our everyday language, intentional. Flavia?
briefly.
Sure, I think I would have to agree with you 100%. And I think, I think we need to stop blame shifting. Producers need to stop blaming the broadcasters. Broadcasters need to stop blaming the producers. Funding bodies need to stop blaming it's a collective effort, and it's all our responsibility together. And and I know what you were saying when you were like, but why is no one helping Swift? It must change now, it must end now. The thing is, then who is going to come? Do you know what I mean? And you can say that from a place of being an ally for Swift, and I can even attest to this, that you're always available to do stuff. But it's so easy to point whilst you're sitting comfortably wherever you're sitting and you're not doing anything. And I hear what you're saying when you're like, you've, engaged the commercial broadcasters and you're like, I want to tell a story about GBV. I'm telling you, they're not going to engage you. But if you say, I want to tell a human story about a woman who did X, Y, and Z, and these are her emotional stakes, and this is what happened to her, that's a universal story. Underlining that, there's GBV that you're making commentary to. There's a lot of stuff that you're making commentary to, but it's a powerful story and it's a tool. And I think that's what I want to say to producers is when you come to commercial broadcasters or commercial spaces, just tell a human story. Put your underlining message where you need to. Be direct about it, but position it as a human story. If you do that, I tell you, you will get commissioned. There is no other way about it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay. Ramadub. Let's dock this ship.
I think I touch on everybody's sentiment. And we need to address things head on. I think we've seen so much suffering that we are tired.
Yes.
We're tired. And once we are tired, then we get frustrated. And it's time that we stop talking and putting things into action. We've been talking, not just on GBV, but on just our industry, and I'm talking based on our industry. Things need to change. Things must change, or else we are going to change them. And we're not going to have fear and be gentle when it comes to that. I'm saying this straight up. And having to say this as a producer who's probably thinking at the back of his mind, I'm I'll never get work, by telling the truth. But when we tell the truth, we are not attacking. We are dealing with the issue. And sometimes our truths need to be corrected. But in order for them to be corrected, we need to put them out there. So we need to start having conversations. As men, as women, as industry experts, as black, as white, as Mdebele, as Mzulu. We need to start having these conversations and openly. Because the only way that's going to sort this out is if we understand where the other person's coming from. And that's why we're sitting here where men feel like they can say things on set because they don't understand which my figure. How does it land on that lady? It's because there's never been a conversation about it. And we only want to have these conversations when now there's a crisis. And you can't have a conversation when there's a crisis. And I like what Steph said. It's that we need to start having these conversations before there's a crisis. Because once there's a crisis, we're all just arguing and we're pointing fingers. So we should be having these conversations as part of our production meetings every morning. On set to say, as a reminder, should you feel that you are violated or should you feel that there's something that you're uncomfortable? And look, I'll have to applaud Scandal on this. I've worked there for 14 years with Steph, we started off young and we still had long hair and we looked ugly.
Wow.
I was horrible. No, I looked. And I looked ugly. Sorry, I had that long hair. And we struggled together.
Shots fired.
No, guys, that was for me. I looked horrible. But I have to applaud them as a production house because every morning there was a production meeting and they would ask, is there anything that you're uncomfortable about? We need to start having the culture of where people can have,
Safe space.
safe spaces to speak.
Yeah.
We need to start having independent bodies within production houses,
Yeah.
because we've had issues where I'm friends with the producer, so you find that I'm the perpetrator, but then someone else is scared to even go to the producer because I am buddies with Steph as a producer.
100%.
So we are working hard, and we are going to see a change, but we are just asking that, the powers that being help us and pull us through to escalate this problem.
Amen. And I mean, there's not much I can add after that. I think what you said about let's not react when there's things have escalated, because then it's too late. Somebody has been traumatized, somebody has been violated, and it takes years to undo and get back to normal after anybody has gone through something so traumatic. And I think we just need to not be putting women on television for the sake of it.
Yeah.
We know that they need to be there having dialogue, having substantial roles. We need to know, something that they call the Bechdel test, where how long is a woman on screen for? Do I know her name? When she speaks to another woman, is it about anything other than a man? So we know that women are about a whole lot more than just being sexy, being the slay queen, being a recovering drug addict or a rape victim. There's so much more that we can do in terms of portraying women and creating stories that everybody can feel a resonance with, and I think there's so many stories. We're so rich with ideas. Just today, I know a lot of people are sitting on their computers, anybody who's a creative in South Africa, having the opportunity to submit to the NFVF for the presidential stimulus package. So we're very grateful and lucky as South Africans to be able to have these platforms and opportunities to tell our stories. So let's take advantage of them and do it with responsibility and with intention. Thank you so much for listening to our panel today. It's been about gender-based violence, or violence in general, or using other words that say exactly what is wrong with the way we treat each other. So thank you to the NFVF. And thank you to the panel.
Yeah.
Over to you, Nombuso.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today. A very big COVID safety hug to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being part of this panel. But more than anything, there's just a few things I'd like to highlight. The first being the collaboration opportunities that Diane said are open to us. It's probably should be taken seriously, because we complain about not having the numbers in box office. We have somebody in here willing to help.
Yeah.
Let's take that up. Second is, we talk about Black excellence, and we talk about it as if it's something we haven't achieved. I'd like to highlight that in this room today, we experienced Buntu excellence. Amazing minds were in this room. Beautiful discussions were had. I just hope it's not all talk.
Yeah.
I just hope we hear what was said and we take it forward. And the third part is, we complain a lot about what government is not doing. From the conversation I witnessed today, I think we're the ones who are going to do that. So I'd like all of us to take up the challenge to say, okay, maybe they can help us with funding, or maybe they can help us with this. But to change the world as we have it right now, I see a lot of potential right here to make that happen. The reason I fell in love with this industry is because there are beautiful stories to be told. And I think these are the type of stories that will have to leave a legacy on our behalf, no pun intended. That's okay. It is what it is. They'll leave a legacy on our behalf. So I really urge all of us to continue fighting piracy, to continue watching every African movie you can possibly watch, to continue sharing the wonderful stories that Africa has to offer. If it's not us, nobody else will do it. And nobody is definitely going to do it better than we can. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Siyabonga. That mic's still
Closing in prayer.
Still rolling.